Have you ever noticed how a day can leave you completely exhausted, even when you have barely done anything? Not physically. Your body may have spent most of the day sitting in a chair, scrolling through a screen, answering a few messages, attending a meeting, or moving from one room to another. Yet, by night, something inside you feels strangely empty. You tell yourself you are tired because life is busy, because work is demanding, because people expect too much from you. But what if your exhaustion has a different source? What if you are not tired from what you did, but from everything you kept trying to receive? Think about how many invisible transactions happen inside your mind every single day. You post something online, then quietly wonder who noticed. You tell a story and hope someone laughs. You finish a task and wait for appreciation that never comes. You send a message and keep checking whether they have replied. Someone walks past without smiling, and your mind quietly asks, did I do something wrong? None of these moments seem important by themselves, but together they slowly become emotional background noise of your life. A constant search for confirmation, a silent hunger that rarely announces itself honestly, because almost nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, today I need more validation. Instead, the mind disguises it. I just want respect. I just want people to understand me. I just want to feel appreciated. I just want someone to notice my effort. These sound different, but underneath there is often the same question. Can someone give me proof that I matter? And once the brain starts asking that question, something remarkable happens. It begins collecting evidence. Modern neuroscience tells us that the brain is not a camera recording reality, it is a prediction machine. Long before you consciously notice the world, your brain has already decided what deserves your attention. This is called predictive processing. It constantly compares the present moment with past experiences and expectations. If you have spent years believing that appreciation is rare, your brain becomes incredibly efficient of noticing every moment you are ignored. If you have carried the fear of rejection, your attention becomes trained to detect rejection, even where none exists. One delayed reply becomes a personal insult. One short conversation becomes proof that someone dislikes you. One criticism outweighs 20 compliments. Not because you are irrational, but because your brain believes it is protecting you. It assumes that noticing social threats increases your chances of belonging. Thousands of years ago, that made sense. Isolation could mean death. Today, isolation often means seeing someone else's vacation photos while sitting alone in your room. The danger has changed, but the brain has not. That's why your emotions sometimes feel larger than the events themselves. You are not reacting only to what happened today. You are reacting to a prediction your mind has been rehearsing for years. And without realizing it, you begin living as if every interaction is asking the same question. What can I get from this person? Approval, affection, recognition, respect, attention, security, even love. Not because you are selfish, because somewhere along the journey of growing up, you learned that these things are limited, that they had to be earned, collected, protected. So life slowly becomes a marketplace, not of money, but of emotional transactions. You become kind because maybe they will like you. You work harder because maybe they will value you. You stay silent because maybe they will accept you. You say yes when your heart whispers no. You laugh when nothing feels funny. You apologize for things that was never quietly, almost automatically. The strange part is that the more we organize life around receiving, the emptier receiving becomes. Waited weeks for something you desperately wanted, a promotion, a relationship, a new phone, an exam result. The moment finally arrives, for a few hours, maybe a few days, everything feels brighter. Then life quietly returns to normal. Psychologists call this hedonic adoption. The nervous system rapidly adjusts to positive changes. What once felt extraordinary soon becomes ordinary. The happiness was not fake, it simply was not designed to last, which creates another invisible cycle. Receive, adapt, want more, receive again, adapt again. The mind mistakes temporary pleasure for lasting fulfillment, and so it keeps researching, not because it enjoys searching, but because it has forgotten another way of living. Ancient Indian wisdom noticed this long before neuroscience could scan the brain. The Bhagavad Gita speaks about a mind that becomes restless when it chases the fruits of action instead of quality of action itself, not because success is wrong, but because attachment quietly hands your inner weather to circumstances you cannot control. If praise arrives, you are happy. If it does not, you are uncertain. If someone chooses you, you feel worthy. If they don't, you question your identity. Notice how fragile that makes peace. Your emotional life begins depending on events that belongs to other people, people's opinions, other people's moods, other people's choices, other people's timing. It's like building your house on waves and wondering why it never feels stable. There is an ancient verse from Bhagavad Gita that has survived for thousands of years because it speaks directly to this human condition. Karmani badhikareste ma phaleshu kadachana. You have a right to your action, never to the fruits of your action. Many people hear this as advice about work, but psychologically it points to something much deeper. It asks a terrifying question. What remains of your identity if you stop measuring yourself by what comes back to you? Most of us have never seriously asked that because from childhood we are rewarded for outcomes, good grades, good behaviors, good performance, good reputation. Somewhere along the way, we quietly concluded, I am what I receive. Love became something earned, respect became something collected. Read this again. Worth becomes something negotiated, and every relationship inherited that silent question. Even generosity sometimes become another investment. I will give because hopefully I will receive. Not always money, sometimes gratitude, sometimes loyalty, sometimes admiration, sometimes security. When those invisible expectations remain, disappointment enters quietly. Not because the other person was cruel, but because our giving was secretly tried to receiving, and that changes the emotional texture of everything. A conversation becomes a test, friendship becomes accounting, love becomes negotiation, kindness becomes strategy. Without intending to, we begin carrying invisible ledgers everywhere we go. Who called fast? Who cared me more? Who appreciated me? Who owes me? No spreadsheet could ever hold these numbers. Yet the heart keeps calculating, and strangely, the more accurate the calculations become, the less alive we feel. The human nervous system was never designed to carry so many invisible calculations. Every expectation occupies attention. Every comparison consumes emotional energy. Every unspoken scorecard quietly asks the brain to keep monitoring, updating, predicting. No wonder silence has become so uncomfortable. The moment the phone is put away, the mind immediately resumes its unfinished accounting. Who forgot me? Who misunderstood me? why I was not enough. Could I have said something better? Should I have worked harder? Should I become someone else? We often call this overthinking, but overthinking is rarely just thinking too much. More often, it is the mind trying to solve an emotional equation that can never be solved from the outside because the variables keep changing. People change, opinions change, circumstances change, even your own desires change. The brain keeps searching for a permanent answer in a world built on impermanence, and that search becomes exhausting. This is why so many people reach milestones that once they dreamed about, only to discover that something still feels missing. The salary increased, the followers increased, the house became bigger, the title became more impressive, yet the strange emptiness remained, not because those achievements were meaningless, but because they were asked to do a job they were never designed to do. No achievement can permanently answer the question, am I enough? That question belongs somewhere deeper. Ancient India explored this long before psychology had names for self esteem, attachment, identity. The Upanishads repeatedly point towards a starting possibility that what we seek outside often reflects something we have forgotten within, not because the world is an illusion in simple sense, but because we constantly mistake reflections for the source. Imagine standing beside a lake at sunrise. You see the sun dancing across the surface of the water. If the water ripples, the reflection breaks. If the wind becomes stronger, the reflection disappears. Would you conclude that the sun itself has damaged? Of course not. Only the reflection has changed. Yet, this is exactly how we often live. Someone's criticism disturbs the surface of our mind. Someone's praise soothes it again. Someone's attention brightens it. Someone's absence darkens it. We mistake the change reflections for our own inner light. Perhaps that is why we spend so much life trying to polish the lake instead of discovering the sun, means the source. There is an old story from the Mahabharata that speaks to this in a surprisingly human way. When Karna was crowned king of Anga, he gained status, recognition, and admiration almost overnight. The same people who had ignored him now stood beside him. The same world that had questioned his worth suddenly celebrated him. From the outside, it looked like everything had changed, but inside, the wound of rejection remained. His lifelong hunger to be accepted did not disappear with a crown. It influenced friendships, it influenced loyalties, it influenced the decisions that would eventually shape the entire war. The tragedy of Karna was not that he lacked greatness, it was the external recognition could never heal an identity that is built upon waiting to be accepted. His story survives because it is not only about a warrior, it is about every human being who hopes that one more achievement, one more relationship, one more victory, or one more compliment will finally silence an old wound. Sometimes it does for a while, then the silence fades because wounds do not disappear. When they are decorated, they begin to heal only when they are understood. Modern neuroscience offers an interesting perspective here. The brain changes through repetition. Natural neural pathways strengthen when they are used repeatedly. If every day we reinforce the belief that our value depends on what comes back to us, that pathway becomes familiar. Eventually, it feels like reality. But familiarity is not the same as truth. The brain is wonderfully adaptable. It can learn a different relationship with experience, not by pretending disappointment does not exist, not by suppressing desire, not by becoming emotionally cold, but by gradually shifting the question instead of asking, What can I receive from this moment? You begin asking, what quality of being can I bring to this moment? Notice how different those questions feel. One creates dependence, the other creates freedom. One waits, the other participates. One keeps measuring life, the other starts living. This does not matter. This does not mean becoming endlessly self sacrificing. It does not mean allowing people to misuse your kindness. Giving is not the same as pleasing. Giving is not the same as abandoning yourself. Sometimes the greatest gift you can offer another person is an honest boundary. Sometimes it's your attention, sometimes it's your patience, sometimes it's your courage to speak the truth with compassion. Sometimes it is simply your full presence in a world where everyone is distracted. Real giving is not measured by quantity, it is measured by the quality of consciousness behind it. That is why two people can perform the exact same action, yet only one leaves another or others feeling deeply seen, because people remember far less of what we gave them than how they felt in our presence. Have you ever met someone who made you feel completely heard? They did not solve your problems, they did not give extraordinary advice, they simply listened without trying to become the center of the conversation. When you left, something inside felt lighter. What exactly did they give you? Not money, not solutions. They gave attention. And attention may be one of the rarest forms of generosity in the modern world. Today, almost everyone wants to be heard. Very few are willing to truly hear. Almost everyone wants understanding. Very few pause long enough to understand. Almost everyone wants love. Very few realize that love often begins as a way of being, not merely a feeling to be received. Perhaps this is why some people enter a room and quietly change its atmosphere, not because they are famous, not because they are wealthy, but because they carry less hunger into every interaction. They are no longer trying to extract something from every conversation. And strangely, that absence of need becomes deeply comforting to everyone around them. Without realizing it, they become a place where others can finally stop performing. Read that again. Where everyone can stop performing. Maybe that is the one of the greatest gifts any human being can offer. Not answers, not perfections, but a presence that asks for very little and therefore has so much to share. And when seen from this place, our sentence spoken by Sadhguru begins to reveal a completely different meaning. It says as, or he says as, by what you get, you can only make a living. It is only by what you give that you make a life. Notice that. He does not say giving makes you richer or more successful or more admired. He says it makes a life, because a living is about survival. A life is about the quality of your inner experience. While you survive, you can accumulate possessions and still feel poor. You can receive endless praise and still feel unseen. You can spend decades collecting proof that you matter while never discovering the quiet abundance that appears when your existence is no longer organized around collecting. Perhaps the deepest transformation is not from having less desire, it is from no longer believing that your completeness depends on what the world hands back to you. The old identity whispers, I become enough when I receive enough. The new understanding quietly replies, I discover enoughness when I stop measuring my existence only by what returns to me. That is not optimism, it is freedom. So, tonight, before sleep, notice something very simple. Notice how often your mind asks, what did I get today? And then, without facing an answer, ask another question. What part of me did I quietly offer to the world today? Perhaps it was patience, perhaps forgiveness, perhaps honesty, perhaps attention, perhaps courage, perhaps kindness that no one may be noticed. Do not ask the question to feel proud. Ask it to become aware, because awareness changes us in ways effort can often cannot. If reflections like these help you understand your own mind a little more deeply, consider subscribing and become a part of this journey inward. And before you leave, I would love to hear your honest reflection. Looking back on your life, what is the one thing you kept trying to receive from the world that you are only now beginning to discover that it must first arise from within ourselves? Namaskar.